All right, greetings. This is Brother Thabiti back with you, and we're going to be dealing with some inequalities. This is the third video on inequalities. This one is inequalities that are advanced and they are multi-step. So please take notes because you're going to be using all of the rules that you've used over the years on this particular challenge here. The next couple challenges, you're going to be using all your adding and subtraction rules, dividing rules, knowing when your multiplication rules, knowing when to change the direction of your inequality. All of those things come into play. So please take some good notes. Okay. So all right. So the first thing we want to do on this particular challenge is distributive property. So that means we're going to multiply this what's on the outside by everything that's inside these parentheses here. So we know that 3 times 2x is going to be, yes, 6x. And then we know that 3 times a positive 1 is a positive 3. And then we bring the rest of the challenge down. We have a greater than or equal to sign. We have 4x plus 9. Now our rule here is we have variables on both sides of the inequality sign. Our rule is that we want to find out our like terms, which is we can say 4x and 6x. Those are two like terms. And what is the lower out of these two like terms? Yes, it is the 4. So that's the one we're actually going to be moving. We're going to change it. This is going to be negative 4x. We're going to make that negative 4x. Cross this out. Now these two signs are different. So what do? Yes, we do subtract, and we should get 2x, and it's going to be positive because a larger number is positive, right? Okay, cross that out. What do we have? We haven't crossed out yet. We got the plus 3. We have the greater or equal to sign, and we also have the 9. Okay, now at this stage right here, we have any inequality with a variable on one side. And if you remember our rules from when we're doing equations, at this point you must look at the two like terms we have here, which will be the 9 and the 3 here. And then you're going to move one of those. Remember, the one we never move when we get to this point is the one that's all by itself next to the equal sign. We don't move that one. We always move the one that's attached to something. This positive 3 is attached to 2x plus 3. Okay, so we're going to change that to the opposite of what it is. And so what is the opposite of positive 3? Yes, it is negative 3. Put that same negative 3 over here. Cross this out. Now these two signs here, they're different, right? Because this is there's nothing there, so you know that's a positive 9, and this is a negative 3. So those signs are different. You must subtract them. If you subtract correctly, you should get, yes, a 6. And it is a positive 6, right? Cross this out. Let's bring the rest of the sign down, the greater or equal to sign, and then we have the 2x. Now we end with our division, right? So whatever number that we have that's right next to the variable, we're going to put that number underneath here. We're going to put the same number underneath there. Now, since we're running out of little room, I'm going to rewrite this up here. 2x is greater than 6. And then when we get to this point, we have to divide by whatever number that's next to the variable, which is the 2. And so we put that 2 underneath here. We put it underneath there. And then remember, we cross this out because those cross cancel. We bring everything else down. We have x is greater than, and what is 6 divided by 2? Yes, it is 3. And your final answer will be, and actually this right here, we have to make sure we don't make a mistake there. You see how this is a greater than or equal to? Greater than or equal to, our final answer is x is greater than or equal to 3. And so that will be our final answer. Okay, now when it comes to graphing, we must go up here to the graph, look for 3. We see 3, and it says x is greater than or equal to. So that means when it's greater than or equal to, that means we're going to have to make it solid. Okay, and then we're going to be going to the right since it says greater or equal to, and so we're going to go in this direction right here until infinity. All right, so that's our graph. So hopefully you took some very good notes, because you're about to do one yourself, class, without my help. Okay, so let me back this up. All right, go ahead and pause the video and go ahead and work that one out yourself. All right. So what you should have done, the first thing I would have done is whenever I see a variable by itself, I'm gonna put a 1 there. Okay. And then what I have is, I'm looking here, I have an inequality with a variable on both sides here. So that means I'm going to move the lower value and change it. So the lower out of -1 and +4 is obviously -1. So what is the opposite of negative? What is the opposite of -1? Yes, it is a positive 1x. And then we'll move that positive 1x over here. Cross this out. 4x and 5, that's 5x. Cross this out and bring everything else down. We have plus, we have 49. We have the greater than, and then we have 9. Now at this point we have an inequality with a variable on one side. And if you remember, our rule says at this point we must move and change one of these. And so out of these two like terms, the one we never move is the one that's all by itself. So this one right here. But we are going to move the other one, which is attached to the 5x, which is 49. And what is the opposite of 49? Positive 49? Yes, it is. It is negative 49. And we're going to move that negative 49 on this side. I'm going to cross this out. And now when we bring this down, these signs right here are different. So when they're different, we must, yes, subtract. And that's going to be a negative 40 since a larger number is 49, right? So let's cross this out. Let's bring everything down that we haven't crossed out. That's the sign here. We have the 5x. And remember, whatever number we have that's right next to the variable, which is the 5 here, we're going to put that number underneath both sides. We're going to divide by both sides. 5 here, 5 there. These two cancel out. When we bring these down, we should have x is less than, and 40 divided by 5 will be -8. And if you got -8, give yourself a round of applause. You're on the right track. Yes, our answer would be -8. And we're going to go ahead, and it says x is less than -8. So let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and graph it. So you got to make sure you know how to graph too. So we have so what you want to do, the first thing is go to -8, and it says less than. X is less than -8. So let's go to -8, and we're going to go ahead and put an open circle. Remember, we'll only put a closed circle if it says equal, less than or equal than. Okay, and then it says less than -8. So if x is less than -8, then we're going to go in this direction right here until infinity, because it's less than -8. Remember, less than is always to your left here. Okay, so you got that one. Give yourself a round of applause. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to do one more. 82. All right, so let's go ahead and work this one out right here. It's very similar to the one we had before, where we want to do distributive property. Remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Shakira. Okay, so we're going to start off with distributive property, and we're going to multiply by everything that's inside the parentheses. We have 4 times 2, which we know is 8, and it is a -8x, right? And then we have a -4 times a -6. Remember, when you're multiplying the same signs, it's always going to be positive in multiplication rules, right? So that's going to be, yes, 24, excuse me. And then we're going to go ahead and bring down all the other signs here. Now this x, I'm going to make that a 1x, okay? Always do that. Don't leave a variable by itself. Plus 6. Now at this point right here, we're down to an inequality with a variable on both sides. We have the 1x and the -8x. Now, what is lower out of -8x and 1x? A positive 1x. Yes, obviously it's going to be, the lower is going to be -8. Remember, because negative is always lower than a positive number. So this is the one we're going to move, but we're going to change it to the opposite of what it is. Right now it's a -8x. And so what is the opposite of -8x? Yes, it is going to be a positive 8x. And we're going to take that positive 8x and put it over here. Cross this out. Bring everything down that we haven't crossed out. I'm going to leave it in the same place for bringing it down. We have the 24 here. We have the sign here. This 1 and 8 is going to be 9x. Then we have plus 6. Okay, now we have a variable on both sides now. We have 24 and then we have 6. Now, which one of these do we move? Yes, we always move the number that's attached to something. So we change that positive 6, make it a negative 6. Move it on this side, make that a negative 6. Cross this out. Let's go ahead and do our subtraction. So we have 24 minus 6 should be 18. And it is a positive 18 since the larger number is positive, right? Okay, cross that out. Bring everything down we haven't crossed out. We have the less than sign, then we have 9x. Okay, now we do our division like we always do. So right here. So the 9, we're going to put that underneath here. We're putting it underneath there. And then now we're gonna cross out the 9s because they cancel out. So now we have x. We have the less than sign, and then we have 18 divided by 9, which we know is 2. Now here's the issue: you cannot graph like this. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we want to always have the variable first. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch places with this 2 and this x. The first thing I do, I'll put the x right here, and I put the 2 right there, and then whatever direction this sign is right here. Whatever direction the sign right here is, it's got to be opposite of what it is. So now it's going to go the other direction. And so this will be our final answer. Okay. And so it says x is greater than 2. So that means we're going to go here to our board here. We're going to find the positive 2. And since it's greater than, it's going to be open. It's not greater or equal. If it was greater or equal, it would be solid. And then it says greater. So we're going to go in this direction right here until infinity. Okay. All right, I think I can do better than that with my line. So, and what you might want to do is when we're using these programs, you can kind of make your straight line like that if you want to. Just make another one, make sure it's solid. All right, so that would be your answer. That's what it'll look like graphed, and that's what it'll look like solving it. All right, so we're going to do one more problem, and you guys are actually going to do this for yourself without my help. So give me a moment. All right, so go ahead and pause the video and work this one out. I want you to solve it and graph it. All right. So let's go ahead and solve this last one here. And so the first thing you should have done is distributive property, right? 4 times 5 should have given you 20. Then you should have said 4 times negative 2x should have been negative 8x. Then you're going to bring everything else down you haven't crossed out. Less than, we have the 28. And then at this point, we say, what are our like terms? Or our like terms here will be our 28 and our 20. Out of these two, which one are we going to move and change? Yes, obviously the one that's attached to something. The 20, we're going to change that to negative 20. We're going to move it over here and make this negative 20. Cross this out. And we bring this down, we should have 8, and it should be a positive 8 since the larger number is positive, right? Cross that out, and what do we have left? We have the less than sign. We have the negative 8x. Okay, and then at this point, we have to, yes, divide. So let's go ahead and whatever number is right next to the variable here, we're going to put that negative 8 underneath here. Put that negative 8 underneath there. And let's go ahead and cancel out what we can cancel out. So we can cancel out these 8s here. And remember to bring everything down just the way it is on the same side it's on. Don't try to mix things up. So we put an X here. Then we have the greater than sign. And then negative 8 divided by a positive 8 is a negative 1. Okay. So we know that this right here is a negative 1. Now, here's a challenge we're having here on this particular challenge. There's 2 rules in play. Whenever you divide by a negative number, which we're doing here, we're dividing by a negative number. Whenever you divide by a negative number, you have to switch the direction of the sign here. But also, if the answer starts with a number first and not the variable, you also have to switch the direction in the sign. So since you're doing two switches, that means you're just going to leave it the same. So if that's not confusing to you, you're instead of switching it and then switching it back, why not just leave it the same? And so what we're going to do is we're going to put this X first. Then we're going to put the -1 over here. And then we're just going to leave it in the same direction it's in, since we will be switching it once and then switching it right back. And our answer will be X is less than -1. So what we're going to do is go here to the to our graph here, and we're going to go ahead to -1. And since this is less than, it's going to be open. And so less than means we're going to be going in the to the left, right here, to infinity. So that's your line going in that direction until infinity. Okay, so if you got that, if you got X is less than -1, and you also graph this like I have up here, give yourself a round of applause. All right. I got a lot of requests for a bonus problem, so I added one more. So go ahead and do this particular challenge. I'll give yourself some time, pause it, and take your time and use all of your rules. Go ahead and conquer this challenge. Now, the first thing that I would do is if I see any variables that's by themselves, I'm going to put an imaginary 1 right next to it. Okay, so right here, I'm going to make that a 1. Also, that applies if you have a negative right in front of parentheses. There's also a 1 there as well. Okay, so now let's go ahead and solve this particular challenge. So the first thing we want to do is we want to multiply the 7 by everything that's inside these brackets here. So this parentheses. So 7 times 1x, we know will be -7x. Then 7 times a +4 is a +28. Then we're bringing the 16 down, plus 16. Then we're going to bring our sign here. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and do this distributive property once I start on this side. So 1 times a -1 times a +10 is a -10. And we have to bring the x with it. And then a -1 times a -6. Remember, when you're multiplying two negatives, it's automatically going to be a positive. So that's a +6. And then we have -6 here. Bring that down. You also have to bring this 5x. So I'm bringing that down as well. Okay. Now, once you brought everything down, now if you have any like terms that's on the same side, you have to make those one number before you start switching things from one side of the inequality sign to the other side of the inequality sign. Make sure that you don't have like terms on the same side that you can cancel out. Okay, so let's go ahead and look. On this side right here, it looks like we do have like terms of 28 and 16. So those are both positive numbers. That means we can add those two together. And if we add 16 and 28, we know that this is 14, and we know that's 4. So it looks like that's going to be 44. So that cross that out. And bring everything else, and that's a positive too. So make sure you put the positive sign. Now we're going to bring everything else down. We have -7x. We also have this sign here, greater or equal sign. And then now on this side, we have that same issue. We have a +6 and a -6. Well, those can cancel each other out, right? And let's just bring everything else down that we have. We have a 5x. We have -10x. Okay. Now we have an inequality with a variable on both sides. We look like we have the -10x here, and we have the -7x there. Now, which one is lower out of those two? Lower in value. Yes, it is a -10. Remember, it's opposite day when it comes to negatives. This is the -10 will be lower, so we're going to change that to the opposite of -10. So that would be, yes, +10x. We take that same +10x and we're going to put it on this side. Let's cross that out. These two signs are different, so we're going to subtract. We're going to get a 3. It's going to be a +3 since a large number is positive. So +3x, cross that out. What do we have left we haven't crossed out? We got the +44. We have the greater or equal sign. And then we also have 5x. Now, at this point, we have like terms on both sides here. But if you remember on these rules here, it doesn't matter which one of these are lower or higher. This is an exception to that rule. When you have this a variable like term that's all by itself on this side, it stays there. We're going to move the other one and change it. So let's change the 3x. What's the opposite of positive 3x? Yes, it is a negative 3x. Put that negative 3x over here. Let's cross this out. Now, these two signs are different, a positive and a negative, so we must subtract. We get a positive 2x. Let's cross this out. Then we're going to go ahead and bring our greater than or equal sign down. We're going to bring our 44 down here. Okay. Now we're almost done. Now we're looking at a division issue here. Okay, so whatever number is next to the variable, you're going to put that number underneath here. Put that same number underneath there. And then when we do our cancellation here, we're going to have an x here. We're going to have a greater or equal sign. And then this right here is going to be 22. Now, remember, we cannot end the problem. We can't graph this. So what you're going to need to do is we're going to have to switch the directions of the variable and the number there. So the x is going to go first. The 22 goes second. And then we have to switch this direction of this particular sign. So it's going to go in that direction. And so it looks like we got our final answer. So your final answer would be x is less than or equal to 22. If you got that, give yourself a round of applause. Okay, and I know I ran a room on my line here. So in this situation, the 22 would probably be over here somewhere. So 22, and then so it says if it's less than 22, then what's going to happen is you would have to go to the left. And so let's go ahead and draw our line. So it would be an open circle here, and then it would actually go to the left to infinity. Go in this direction right here. Okay. So that would be how we would do it. So if you got that, and actually let me make this correction. It has to be solid because it's, remember right here, if it's possibly equal to, we're going to have to make that solid. So it should be a solid line like this, and it should go in that direction to infinity. Excuse me on that one. Okay, so if you got that, give yourself a round of applause. All right, great job, students. All right, so keep on working on that math. Keep on stimulating that brain, and you guys will be all right. Say, see you next time. Have a good day. One love.